A brute force attack is a type of attack where the attacker essentially tries all combinations to try and break into an account. A good example of this is, for example, if you're logging into a door or some bank accounts, you might need a PIN number. And so if you were brute forcing that, you would try 0000, 0001, 0002, and you try all combinations until you get in. A brute force attack is the same kind of thing as that, just using the username, a known username, and then attempting to crack the password by trying all combinations of passwords. There's a few different types of brute force attacks. The most common is actually using what they call a dictionary attack. A dictionary attack is exactly what it sounds like. Essentially what they do is go through the dictionary. They try all the words in the dictionary, because certainly in the early days, and even to this day, a lot of people use dictionary words as part of their password setup. And so attackers will use that. One of the advances that attackers have done now is also build databases of known passwords. So with all the breaches that have happened in recent years, they can build up a list of the most common passwords, perhaps the most common million or even the most common 5 million, and they can try all of those different passwords that people often use as a combination. So that's one of the first techniques. A different type of technique is actually what they call a reverse brute force attack, where in this case what they're actually doing is they use a common password, and so there are some very common passwords that people use, and instead of actually trying to guess what the password is, they'll actually go through a list of usernames and attempt to crack into a system using that method instead. So they'll keep using the same password but try different usernames and see whether somebody's used that password. So attackers usually use a brute force attack as often a very early step in actually breaking into a system and then doing what they need to do. Attackers will also use brute force techniques once they've already gained access into a system, perhaps to try and elevate their privileges to an administrator or a more powerful user. And so they may, once they've actually gotten into a system, perhaps using stolen credentials, they will then also use a brute force attack, perhaps on a password hash in the system or using some kind of rainbow table to then elevate themselves to administrator on the system. Now, a brute force attack is basically a very, very basic attack. It doesn't have a lot of finesse, because basically it's a set and forget type of thing with the computer, and you're just using the brute force power of the computer to try and crack into a system. A very useful method of defending yourself against a brute force attack is simply to make your password more complex. As I sort of mentioned earlier, often the most common thing that a brute force attack starts with is a dictionary attack. So you need to make sure that you're not using a common password. And this is sometimes where using a password manager that will generate a truly random password for you that you don't have to remember, that gets saved into the password manager, can help you. Because a brute force attack literally is exactly what it says, which is it tries every single combination. And at some point, the attackers have to give up if they can't crack into a system using your particular username and password. What that particular threshold is where you want to be above. So if you can make sure you have a very, very long password that is using complex characters, i.e. upper and lowercase letters, numbers and symbols, then an attacker will eventually have to give up, because a truly strong password can take tens of thousands of years to brute force. The second thing that you can often do to defend yourself is to use things like multi-factor authentication. So even if the attacker actually gets in and actually brute forces your password somehow, or acquires it via some other means, you have this extra layer that prevents them from accessing the system.